Chapter 13. Confessions. It is with great dishonor that I sit and write these words. I look around the party I have always called my own, the party into which I was born, the party which I have worked for and served my whole life, and I find us in disgrace. This is no political party to which I refer, friends, or at least it wasn't. This is that other party, you know, the one where people get together as human beings to have a good time and build relationships. In political commentary, this is generally referred to as the cultural commons. It is absolutely necessary bedrock for a free and civil society. Seriously, am I the only one who took civics? My parents were convention and festival organizers, first managing wars in the Society for Creative Anachronism, and later co-founding the Maquis Freedom Alliance as an alternative to the corrupted local chapter of the IFT. We hosted 3 years of conventions, but my father was buried at 35 in his engineer's uniform to boldly go where no man has gone before. Wherever we went, our house was open to the lost, the hungry, the lonely, the stranger, whatever his creed or color or class. Though we became utterly destitute, we never abandoned our commitment to community and hospitality, coming from both a deep Southern heritage on the Texas frontier and recent infusion of Norwegian sailor stock. Both of my mother's parents were in the Freemasons. My grandmother, who in her lifetime worked as both a nurse and a teacher of disabled children, was a worthy matron to the Rainbow Girls. During World War II, my grandfather served our nation as a coder translating messages in Navajo, one of few non-natives able to understand it. In the old country, his mother was part of the Norwegian resistance, using the family fishing fleet to smuggle Jews out of Norway under the noses of real, live, actual, murderous Nazis. My great-great-grandmother, Sarah Harkey Hall, penned the memoir and now significant primary source document surviving on the Texas frontier, The Diary of an Orphan Girl in San Saba County. I could continue, but I consider it unnecessary. While not all of my forebears were of this caliber, I feel no guilt or shame for how my recent ancestors on the whole have acquitted themselves. They worked very hard to achieve basic survival and greater things for themselves, their families, their communities, their countries. Some of them were outright heroes. What more could anyone ask of one's antecedents? What none of those people ever did, would ever even have thought to do, was to use the social sphere to assault people and their friends over differences in political views. You want a political party? There are spaces for that. But you don't get to bring your rage, your anger, your violence into our peaceful domains, where we are happy to talk about these matters as adults and friends. No one voted for you. No one agreed to accept your judgment of others in the community. You have no right whatever to run around slandering those whom you do not like because they happen to be a liberal, or a conservative, or a fascist, or even a goddamn Nazi to your mind. Who died and made you God? Remember McCarthyism? Are you now, or have you ever been, a communist? How about the Comstock era? Or the comic book code? Is it really so long ago? This bloodletting has got to stop. We are irreparably damaging the commons with this attack on free speech, a hard-won right that we must constantly work to keep from being eroded. When you take political rage into non-political spaces, you are violating the consent of every person who gets caught up in the whirlwind of your madness. Our common public spaces are governed by the Constitution. We have the right to speak, the right to assemble, the right to associate. You do not make all of the rules in all of the spaces. You do not get to violate the civil liberties of your fellow citizens unchecked simply because you claim to be doing so in my name. No. Most especially not. Because you claim to be doing so in my name. You are playing a dangerous game, for you invite your counterparts to attack us in our spaces in retaliation. This game of chicken is not one for which we all signed up, and there have already been bystander casualties. I will not be one of those who sits by in silence. I will not be one of those whom history looks back upon to ask, well, why didn't anybody do anything to stop it? I am appalled that not only has the clergy of my pagan faith overwhelmingly said nothing as these travesties have been occurring, but in many cases are speaking to outright encourage them. It is not they, with their comfortable middle-class speaking tour and festival circuit lives, who will put on the black and go punch a Nazi or bash a fash. No. It will be the vulnerable, overwhelmingly queer, poor youth, so angry and confused and fragile, who are listening to them. It will be these hapless victims of incessant, dogmatic, sociocratic, conformist programming whom we will see take to the streets. Whoever you are, please look upon them and try to find a shred of pity. We are being used for puppets in a game with parameters far exceeding the boundaries of our sight. They are trying their best to be brave, and surely we can all understand the impetus to strive for Valhalla. I've no doubt some of their handlers are taking grafts somehow, but I assure you that these foot soldiers are not. Please, pull your punches for the young and stupid. But for those cowards who sit by comfortably behind their computer screens drinking double whip, low-fat, gluten-free, organic soy Starbucks, spouting this rhetoric, these instructions that they repeat with no intention of following through upon or of bearing the burden of the risks thereof themselves, for these I have not but the purest of contempt. They have wholeheartedly embraced this pernicious mimetic disease called moral relativism that includes in it the blasphemy by any means necessary, yet all the gumption they can muster is to click like and share. May my lips be accursed by all the gods if my words are not true. If you embrace the methods of the enemy, you become the enemy. I speak here not of our political opponents, but of our shared, true enemy. What means will they not use against us? This. When we, the people, are facing a panopticon militarized police state to a degree incomprehensible to any of our forefathers except in their darkest of science fiction fever dreams? And you wish to test your mettle against this great beast and bring its might crashing down upon us all, friend and foe alike? Have you all lost your minds? War is terrible, so let's have one in our own streets. Would you lose us this battle forever? We need no officers to operate this ideological police state over us, for we have done it to ourselves. We have isolated ourselves to only consuming one approved program narrative or the other. It is decreed that anyone who strays from whichever path of righteousness laid out for us by an hilarious assortment of hucksters, madmen, and other egomaniacs who are both sides in cahoots must be cast out. I spit upon the work of these propagandists who have ignored the real struggles of poor and working-class Americans, have covered up 40 years of ongoing race wars with the semantical tricks of gang violence and civil unrest. The irony of all of this is that the U.S. government calls our Fago-loving cousins, who are juggalos and juggalettes, a gang, but ignores the mafia-like tactics used in common parlance all over left-leaning organizations that are sociocratic. In these, we all pretend it's hippie egalitarian, but when push comes to shove, we all know who the shovers are. We stay out of those people's way, for they will not hesitate to assassinate our characters and drive us from the communities and people we love. This is the textbook coercive persuasion model of all baneful cults. Conform or be cast out. It is far worse even than Amish banishment, for at least these will not pursue you past the gate. But now, your fellow Americans are spying on you. They are keeping files on you. They are infiltrating your organizations and working against you while pretending to be your friends. They are contacting your employers. They are contacting the authorities. They are contacting people you meet at social events to warn them about you. They are forcing your shared friends to choose up sides in an ongoing, terrible, internal struggle for cultural ascendancy in the most polluted of small pond situations possibly imaginable, ironically calling this being a social justice warrior. And all of this for scraps from the master's table. Am I missing something here? When did purgings and ideological litmus tests become a value of the left? I don't remember that in any of the Peter, Paul, and Mary PBS specials to which I sang along so regularly as a child. The answer, my friend, is kicking you out, just doesn't have that bell of freedom ring to it. If I had a hammer, I sure as hell would not cross it with a sickle. What's worse is that these people don't even recognize the cognitive dissonance of it all. We hate fascism, so we're going to go start riots deliberately, leaving the police no choice but to crack down on our skulls with the violent force of the state. We are going to hijack the work of organizations and attendees who came together to create legitimate nonviolent protest actions, because some of them are our people who think it's okay. We'll use normies as meat shields and throw explosives at average Republicans. That will bring out the white supremacists for sure. And right on time, enter stage right their exact counterparts, who never back down from an open challenge. I am telling you, friends, someone is toying with us. Perhaps we could all just go back to smoking weed and drinking beer with our friends. Have we considered that as a possibility? It was working pretty well. And all the left is supposed to cheerfully endorse this, as some shiny AstroTurf YouTube ads can inform us, as if ISIS and Pixar had borne a love child. Really? Aren't these the same people we were all whining a few minutes ago cost Bernie the primary and installed Hillary in his place? Why on earth would we now go out and hit people with sticks because they say we ought? I don't want to impose, only ever invite. Wake up. Labor voted with the Republicans this time in record numbers. The DNC, from whom we apparently take marching orders now, has not been representing our interests in the gods know how long. Now, whatever color of the rainbow you are, whatever your sexual proclivities or gender identities, however much conservative shibboleths and ideas may trigger you, you need to listen to what they are saying, because it is quite clearly what the poor want to hear. They are mixing in enough truth that reflects the lived experience of middle American poverty, an experience that we coastal lefties are leaving out to make it manna from heaven to them. This is why we lost the election. It is because we stopped telling the truth, and we stopped telling it a long time ago. What is worse, we did a slander on the truth itself, saying that indeed there was none. In so doing, we have ceded any possible claim to the moral high ground on any issue, any potential avenue of establishing a basis for trust with any who do not simply ingest our dogma at the supper bell. We have forgotten the first rule of dealing with cults: never drink your own Kool-Aid. It has always been the place of clergy in the movement to stand up for nonviolent action and restorative discourse in times of social unrest, and to focus on a return to the values that make us who we really are as fellow Americans. This we see in the example of Dr. King himself, however flawed and human he may have been. Likewise, However unpopular this position may be at this time, I see no reason to abandon my post, for I am a proud American citizen, and also a member of the left. I am proud of our struggle from oppressed and bedraggled masses to standing free nation with the overthrow of our imperial British chains, which action took the cooperation of all the colonies. I am proud of the work of the abolition movement, Southerner and Yankee, black and white, in rescuing those in bondage and amplifying their voices to change the hearts and minds of America. I'm proud of those who volunteered as medics and nurses during the war between the states, who treated any fallen brother regardless of the color of his jacket. I am proud of all the mothers of America who stood together to demand an end of it in order to bring their sons and husbands home. I'm proud of the workers' movements, and most especially of the musician and martyr Joe Hill. He would not defend himself by turning over even the romantic rival who had shot him, and faced down his execution squad spitting in defiance, "Fire! I said fire!" I'm proud of the conciliatory work of Dr. King and Malcolm X during the Civil Rights era, who brought together two deeply distrustful factions of the Black liberation movement to unite in common cause with allies of all colors and put an end to legal segregation. There were other, darker moments for which I can be not so proud. I am mortified that the women's movement was split for 30 years over whether to support suffrage for black men if it came before that of white women. I cannot condone the actions of the temperance movement, which short-sightedly lobbied for prohibition and have bequeathed us this incessant war on drugs. I stand chastised for the complicity of Margaret Sanger in evoking a racial eugenics argument to gain us all access to birth control, however well it may have worked at the time. I am disgusted that founding members of the LGBTQ movement caucused with NAMBLA. I've no answer for the last 30 years of failed global utopian fiscal policy that has left us at the mercy of a shadowy network of extra-national powers and billionaire bankers. I apologize on behalf of my entire sex for the unnecessary continuation of hostilities against all of our brothers individually for the crimes attributed to the hated patriarchy. I reject utterly the notion that circumcision is some kind of due payback, and I weep for all the wasted years you were begging for us to help you do something about it, and we said you were trying to take away from the significance of women's suffering. You are all victims of infant genital mutilation, and in almost all cases, your mother could have prevented it simply by uttering the word no. In this void, only silence. There have been times when we on the left have been utterly, demonstrably, horribly wrong. It is no shame to admit it, so long as we mean to mend our ways and be made anew from the day we wake up onward. At present, our leadership on the left in the form of the DNC has become a wasted and corrupt institution that puts politics over people at every turn. For some reason, our spiritual leaders have decided to go along with them anyway. We must be deeply suspicious of any rhetoric or program they lay before us. Let us therefore look back to those great activists and leaders in our shared history who have made progress for us on the long march to freedom. Let us look to their mistakes and not repeat them. Let us be humble and prepared to re-examine ourselves in this time of great upheaval. How can we legitimately demand that our government work toward a place of peace with its own people and abroad if we ourselves are at war? A far greater battle rages all around us whether we see it or no. If we the people do not unite in common cause with our fellows, we will be crushed under the heel of maniacs and tyrants. Now is not the time to rip open old wounds. Now is the time to reach out for any hand we can find in the darkness and prepare to stand together as fellow Americans and as human beings. To any who cannot do this, kindly stay the hell out of the spaces of those of us who are trying. As for me and my house, love is the law. Love under will. As a member of the clergy who has been serving my community for 12 years, and in full-time service to alternative culture people from all over the political spectrum for the last 5, I am deeply dissatisfied with the overall response of the pagan community to these trends. We have not only been complicit, we have made ourselves a source. It is we who have subjected ourselves to this mad lot by playing the game of exclusions, casting out those whose views make others uncomfortable. We bought the lie that our spaces must be made safe for whomever demands. But one can't please all of the people all of the time. Thus we have subjected ourselves to the ministrations of social blackmail, in which one disgruntled member may completely destroy an organization by assassinating the characters of the leadership thereof. It is persistent, it is pernicious, and it is the most destructive thing I have ever seen in my life of service to community organizations in any context. In this atmosphere of paranoia, it is impossible to know abuse from human failing, thus allowing predators to hide among us. We must stop allowing these assaults upon our sovereign spaces to rule the decisions we make. I understand and know well that one must always do what is best for the good of the show, but I stand before you and swear that this complicity with authoritarianism most definitely, in the long run, is not. Right now, before it is too late, call a meeting of whatever organizers you have and take stock of your institutions. If you do not have clear organizational documents and bylaws, or if these do not contain conflict resolution, member protection, and/or disciplinary procedures, create these now. These are what protect you from the encroachment of other groups and individuals upon your rights as an organization. The idea that having such is acceding to the evils of institutionalism is a base lie, and the people spreading it certainly have such documents to protect themselves. It is utter hypocrisy. It is precisely because our groups are informally organized that we and our people are ready targets for their recruitment and takeover efforts. Bigger organizations eat smaller organizations everywhere. This is just how it is, folks, ideology notwithstanding. Calling it networking or coalition building or cross-pollination or whatever else doesn't change the fact that the desires of the organization with the most resources will end up superseding those of smaller component organizations. For 5 years, we have maintained an ideologically vibrant and diverse spiritual space where anyone in the activist and pagan communities can come for help if they are in need. Our coven instead has put up countless young people in emergency housing situations to the extent of the limits of whatever our lease at the time. For 5 years, I have sat with those who are suffering from abuses by their leadership and fellows in the occult, sex-positive, BDSM, and queer communities, such abuses frequently being the cause of their sudden circumstances. In all that long time, I have never asked a single, solitary dime from any of them, unlike my counterparts who charge by the minute or treat any such unpaid helping act as script to demand favors in the future. At no point do we apply an ideological or status test to determine whether the person before us is worthy of aid. Like the Red Cross, we treat all casualties. Many of my counterparts tokenize certain hard luck cases for the look of the thing, but spend the bulk of their energy producing and promoting events just to stay in this little game. This is almost necessary because there truly is so very little money in it and everyone in competition for it. I understand their situation intimately, but have chosen another course. Who do you think has a better idea of what's actually going on in the community? The producers or the activists? Which job description do you think is more representative of the traditional role of clergy? I am no hierophant. I am only a storyteller. If religion be used to sow dissent among the brethren, if religion be used to tear apart community rather than build it up, if religion be used to attack and not correct, then that religion is a false religion. I say here today in full public view that there is a false religion corrupting us from the inside, and that is the worship of the god called Mammon, the incessant quest for more and more material comfort through the acquisition of money. How oft do we look away from the face of evil because it is the face of someone who contributes one way or another to our coffers? How often do we side with a person playing victim to avoid the social backlash should we not accede to their demands? I say unto you, it is a blasphemy and a complete repudiation of the traditions of our ancestors to claim that there is no right and no wrong, neither justice nor injustice. I call upon all of my fellows to rise up and throw off the chains of this false religion that has gripped us, this glamorized, glitter-covered, neon spectacle about the spiritual, and return to the values of our ancestors: justice, peace, courage, grace, respect, honor, compassion, dignity, integrity, loyalty, humility, sovereignty, hospitality. If these words stir no passion in your heart, I see not how you can claim heirship from the Druids, the Picts, the Celts, the Norsemen, the Gauls, the Greeks, the Egyptians, the Kabbalists, the alchemists, the Gnostics, nor any other source within the Western mystical tradition. And if that be so, then what the hell are you doing here, destroying our party? If you will not honor the peace of the hall, then get out.